Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Wednesday to you all. I pray that you all have been blessed this week. I pray that you are well this week. Come on in to those of you who are joining on the various social media platforms. Come on in today. We are live. As you join, listen, I'm going to ask that you like, share, subscribe, comment, get involved in today's dialogue. This is the day that the Lord has made. We rejoice and we are glad in it. And today I absolutely want to talk about stumbling blocks turning into stepping stones. So come on in, do me a favor. Let me know where you are joining from. Share your name if you would be so kind to do so. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. For those of you who are new, my name is LaShonda Lee. I am a professional life coach and I am a certified Christian counselor. And I love to help people go from where they are to where they are to where they want to be. And I marry the spiritual and the natural together so that we can have a win-win type of situation. And today we are going to talk about some stumbling blocks. I'm just trying to find something here. There we go. We're going to talk about stumbling blocks because even though we do not like talking about stumbling blocks, they are very, very vital. They are very, very vital. As a matter of fact, if you look in Proverbs 24 and verse 16, it talks about that a righteous man or woman may trip 7 times, but they are going to get up again. They are going to get up again. And so the promise that you and I have as the righteous of God is that if we stumble, we will get back up. Now, the wicked, that's not the case for them. That's not the case for them. But if you are the righteous, you may stumble 7 times, but God guarantees in His word, and His word is absolute, that you will rise again. And so, what is a stumbling block? A stumbling block is a circumstance or a situation that causes difficulty or it may cause hesitation, right? I remember several years ago when I launched a business and that business was extremely successful, but I had stumbling blocks along the way. You know, those of us who have been married for some time, or maybe you are still a newlywed, there are going to be stumbling blocks along the way. And so, what we don't want to do is fear the stumbling block. We don't want to shun the stumbling block. We don't want to curse the stumbling block because at the end of the day, that very same stumbling block can be a stepping stone for you to get to the next level. And so, stepping stones are things that literally help in the progress, they help in the advancement of your success. And you may say, well, LaShonda, how in the world can a stumbling block aid and assist me along the journey? Because one thing, a stumbling block may actually open your eyes to some blind spots. Some blind spots. Maybe you didn't know that you were walking in unforgiveness. Maybe you didn't know you were walking in fear. Maybe you didn't know you were walking in worry, but circumstances and situations brought that to light, and now you're able to address it. I remember when I was growing up, my mom, she was a single mom, and so she was raising me, my brother, and my sister. And I can recall there were many times where it's just looking at the circumstances, clearly we were short of finances, right? We were short of finances because I would see this worry that took over my mom. Um, but what was interesting in the early part of the month, she would always give me money to put aside. And she would say, LaShonda, put this aside so we can have it for the end of the month. She would say, LaShonda, put this aside so we can have it for the end of the month. LaShonda, put this aside so we can have it for the end of the month. And so as a little girl, putting money aside so we can have for the end of the month, it kind of embedded in me a fear of something. Something happens with money and the end of the month, right? Something happens at the end of the month and something happens with money. And so as it began to get closer to the end of the month, I began to see my mom worry. She began to wonder how she was going to do A, B, and C. But then I would remind her, Mom, do you remember you gave me this for the end of the month? And she was like, oh, and you would see how the load would just lift off of her. She would be so happy and she would be excited because she had forgotten that she had given me this money for the end of the month. Well, fast forward as I began to grow, that was still in my psyche. That was still in my psyche. And so I grew up, even as a young adult, always worried about money. I was worried about money. And I always said, you know what? I'm going to start a business so that I never, ever have to worry about money again. So at the age of 22, I started a business, right? And it was in social services because I went to school for human services, social work. That was my passion. And so I started this business, right? It was called Self Improvement, right? It was called Self Improvement. And so I provided services for um, child welfare, those families who found themselves in the system, those families who kind of had gotten written off. I dedicated my work to helping those families. And it was a very successful business because we were so great at our work. Case managers was always sending us families to work with. And so even though it was in social work, I wasn't a non-for-profit. I was a for-profit entity. And my company was literally bringing in at the age of 22 and 23, we were bringing in between 20 and $40,000 every single month. Between 20 to $40,000 every single month. And y'all, I believed I had made it. You hear me? I believed I had made it. But you know what? What didn't leave me was that fear and that worry. Even though, mm, even though I was seeing 20 and $40,000 come in every single month, I still feared losing it. I still feared losing it because, see, I remembered that my mom had it at the beginning of the month, but there's a fear that started showing up in the middle of the month into the end of the month. And I feared losing it, right? And what's so interesting, if you look at Job, the 3rd chapter and the 25th verse, Job said the thing that he feared had come upon him, right? It had overtaken him. And so, one note I want you to know is that whatever you fear, it can come upon you and it can overtake you. So, even though you may see this stumbling block in your way, don't fear it. Don't fret because that thing has the ability to overtake you. Even though God has promised that if you don't fear and if you don't worry, that guess what? You will rise again. And so that stumbling block opened up a door, right, to something that I didn't know. It made me challenge worry. It made me challenge fear. And so God put me in a position where I had to address certain things. Why? Because if I didn't address the stumbling block, it will always be a stumbling block. You get where I'm going with this? If you don't address the stumbling block, it will always be a stumbling block. It will always be a difficulty. It will always be a hesitation. It will always be a thing that you hit your head against and you can never get to the other side. And so when you see the stumbling block, you have to remind yourself that you can do all things through Christ, which strengthens you. You have to remind yourself that this stumbling block is going to help you progress, or this stumbling block is going to be vital to your advancement, because the Bible promises you and me that God doesn't put more on us than we can bear. All right? All right? And so the way that you look at it is, I can do this. I can overcome it, right? And what I've learned, and this may not sound good right now, but what I've learned is the more that it stings, right, the better the medicine is working. You get that? The more it stings, the better the medicine is working. And so your life, my life, will always have its bitter medicine in the form of failures, right? Stumbling blocks. But the more it stings, the better the opportunity God will have to help us win the race, overcome the circumstance, rise again. Because he promised that a righteous man may fall 7 times. Did you notice he put a number on that thing? 7 times. But you will rise again. And one thing that I have found is that discipline is a very key part of it. You know, the Bible says in Hebrews 12:11, no discipline seems pleasant at the time. Instead, it seems very painful. But later on, however, that discipline, it will produce a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. And so if we allow that stumbling block to teach us something, it may show us where we still need some work to do. It may show us that we still need some learning. It may show us that we still have a few flaws. It may show us that we still need to mature. But if we allow it to train us, that stumbling block will turn into a stepping stone. And notice with stepping stones, every time you step and raise yourself up, you get to the next level, and then you get to the next level, and then you get to the next level. And so life is full of highs and lows. The Bible talks about mountaintops and it talks about valleys. So life is full of highs and lows. The highs of successes are easy to handle, right? But the lows of failure or stumbling blocks seem to stick around forever. But it is important to remember that God's ways are not necessarily our ways, right? And so, unless we learn to see those stumbling blocks from God's point of view, we may become discouraged and defeated. Often we learn valuable lessons from those stumbling blocks. And often we are strengthened by those stumbling blocks, right? And so God has a purpose in your life. God has a purpose in my life. And he desires for you and I to be successful in everything we do. That includes our personal relationships with him. That includes our interpersonal relationships with others. That includes our intrapersonal relationship with ourselves. That includes our wealth, our finances, our careers, our businesses, our relationships with people in our church. God desire for us to be successful because he put it in the Bible that everything we lay our hands to prosper and succeed. So that's everything. So through God's grace, You and I have the ability to forget about any past failures and put all of that behind us, right? We have the grace to look at stumbling blocks and know that they will soon be a stepping stone because you and I are free to walk forward in the light of Christ's love. So listen, maybe you are dealing with some issue even right now. Instead of getting frustrated with the situation, I remember the late yet great Jim Rohn, he said, don't get frustrated with situations. Because if you get frustrated with a situation, you will never learn the lesson from it. He said, instead, get fascinated by the situation. And you may say, well, LaShonda, this doesn't look good. How am I supposed to get fascinated? By renewing your mind. That's how you get fascinated. You renew your mind. You renew your mind because when you get fascinated by the situation, that's when you can learn the lesson. And when you learn a lesson, when you are trained by a lesson, typically you never have to repeat it because you know what that other side looks like, right? You know what the other side looks like. So look at the stepping stone or the stumbling block that's in your life right now and ask God, Lord, what is it that you want me to learn from this? Because I don't want to repeat it. Because one thing I know about God, He's not going to allow you to flunk out of his classroom. He will continue to bring that lesson to you over and over and over and over again because he wants you to learn it. Because, see, remember, he knows the plans that he has for you, and they are plans to prosper you, not plans to harm you, plans to give you a hope in a future. So he will not allow you to get in the way of the plan he has for you. So if that means he got to keep putting this stumbling block before you because you won't allow it to train you, so be it. So instead of again getting frustrated with it, you might as well get fascinated and say, God, what is the lesson that you want me to learn? Open my eyes so that I can see. Open my ears so that I can hear. All right. So take that stumbling block and allow it to be a stepping stone. All right? Because at the end of the day, God says, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. All right? So listen, may God bless you today. May God keep you today. Lift your head and keep it raised high because you may be in a stumbling block right now. But if you keep pressing, you will turn around and see that it was really a stepping stone. All right. So listen, may God bless you and keep you is my prayer. Okay, I'm just now seeing like these comments. All right. All right. So good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. And I look forward to seeing you all on the next broadcast. All right. Again, move from stumbling blocks to stepping stone. All right. God bless you.